Hi, I'm Tom Stevenson and welcome to Microsoft Project, the course. I'm a professor of construction management and I train people using this software in all ways, shapes, and forms, but especially in construction management. So my focus is kind of like from a construction perspective. In this series, I've uploaded files that you can download to Google Drive. So you can download this start point file that I have here. I will provide a link in the description below so that you can download it and follow along. One of the things with training in Microsoft Project is if you can follow along and repeat things, then you start to get the hang of it. Me showing you is one thing. It can be helpful if there's a specific thing, but if you really want to know the program, learning step by step and following along can be really helpful. This is video number 7 in the series. In the description below, I'll have a list of others in the series. Please click subscribe and notifications, and you can follow along as I upload new videos. And if you're interested in other areas of construction management and construction, take a look at my many playlists in different topical areas, and I think it'll be helpful for you as we build this community. Also, if you enjoyed this, leave a comment. So today we're going to be just introducing the updating process. In previous videos, I've demonstrated, like in this particular file, how you can set up a project in Microsoft Project. And so what we've covered so far, just to give a little iteration, we've covered creating a work breakdown structure. So you can see I've kind of color coded it to the different levels here. We've got our highest level with the classroom remodel. Next level down, we've got pre-construction, site mobilization, construction, and closeout. So those are some of the different levels. At the activity level, the lowest level, we have listed a series of activities and we've assigned the appropriate resources and costs to those activities. To do that, we had to slide to the left, right click, then you've got your selection of screens. We had to go down to the resource sheet and create all of those resources in this separate table. Ones that we want to monitor by the hour, we put hourly rates to. Ones that we want to put a cost to, like subcontractors, we've just listed them as cost. You have 3 choices, work, material, and cost. So we did all of that. And very important, how you select this will determine what you're able to enter or not enter in your tables and how the program will calculate that information. So we did all of that. And again, you can go back to previous videos to get the real detail on that. So that'll give you a pretty good idea. And I'm going to slide to the left again. I'm going to go back up to the Gantt chart here. We also put in a project start date. So in this project information box, we put in the project start date. I think right now, what are we showing here? We are showing January 11th as the project start date, 2024. You know, if I want to change that, all I got to do is select a different date. So I could select January 16th as an example, and that'll change it to January 16th. Once I click OK, you should see this all change to a different date. That's fine. We can change it at this point because what we're in the process of doing, if we want to update our schedules, we have to set a baseline. And this is where we're headed in today's session is we have to set a baseline, but we have to understand that we need to have all of our information on the schedule that we want as our original plan. So we should be complete in our planning at this stage when we set the baseline, because what happens is the program remembers a certain amount of fields, and then when you want to check, well, what was originally there? What's the variance? Then you can look and you can find those variances, which is really helpful because for sure, as you enter in doing the project, things won't go the way you planned. So we're going to get into that over the next few videos. We've got this plan, we're updating, and things have changed. First, we have to figure out, okay, so things have changed, but where are we? And then we've got to look at what are our differences between our plan and where we are. Also, we got to look at, on a real project, what opportunities have also presented themselves that maybe we can take advantage of and save some time on. And create a recovery. That'll be down the road. How do we create a recovery schedule? How do we get the time back? all the while keeping in that baseline information of the original timeframes, because likely, well, it depends what it is, but construction projects, likely you have contractual commitments to meet certain dates. And so for us in the construction world, it's important then to know, are we going to be able to still meet those dates? What are some of the repercussions of not meeting those dates? Why are we delayed? Did we cause the delay or did someone else cause the delay? So I'm hoping in future sessions to get into that and sort of unpack all of that. But for today, we're just looking at our schedule and we're going to be looking at how do we actually update the information. We put in all of our holidays as well, so that should all be in before you think about actually if I go to 2024, right? We should be looking at that, making sure that our holidays are all in for what we want to display. And I'm noticing that I'm missing a few here. So we've changed this at some point to 2024, probably one of the previous videos that I was doing. I did have up to the end of 2023 and beginning of 2024, but I need to update a few more. So I could easily then put in those extra holidays that I may need. I think let's take a look at this. So we'll put in a couple of holidays. I'm not sure what day Easter is in 2024, or Good Friday, but maybe I'm going to just say Good Friday, just as a reminder for you, 2024. And I'm going to put in, it's got now the 11th, I'm going to put in the 12th, and we'll just click out of that. So now it's got the 12th in there, so that's good. And maybe for Victoria Day, I'm going to scroll down a little bit, and I'll put Victoria Day. Oops, I'll put Victoria Day here. We'll say, yeah, that'll be Victoria Day for sure. So we're going to say May 20th. Sorry, Victoria Day. All of the holidays, whatever country you're in, you put the holidays in for it. So if you're in the US, you might be looking, what's Victoria Day? We celebrate July 1st. In Canada, you celebrate July 4th, or other countries may have different holidays during that time period. But again, I'll just put it in here, July 1st, which is Canada Day. Actually, an easier way of doing that would be just to say Canada Day. Actually, no, it's got it as 2023. It didn't use that. So I'll go back here and put it in as July 1st. We'll go down here and we'll say Canada Day. Again, as long as you get the gist of how to put in these holidays, we did that in a previous video. I just wanted to update a few things here just so it's a little bit more realistic here. And I think we've got one more that I want to put in. So we'll put in the August 5th, the first Monday in August. That's a good one for me to do. So I can do that one is the civic holiday, and I can just go to details and I can just say yearly, the first Monday of August, and I can say 10 years, and I've got it for 10 years. So I don't even have to worry about that one. Same thing I could do with Labor Day. And usually what I do, as I've mentioned before in previous videos, so yearly again for Labor Day, the first Monday of September, 10 years. I usually do a template file to start out with all of the holidays for like 10 years in it. So I create that, and then I don't have to worry about every time I start a new project putting in all of the holidays or all the holidays there. I don't have to worry about it for like 10 years. I may have to customize a few things, but at least I have it. And of course, when I did that, it shows what dates changed. And so everything under construction changed, was affected by that. And of course, that affected the overall project for the classroom remodel. Okay, so now we're good with that. And we've got our costs applied. Currently, our costs for this little project is $352,240. So that's what that's showing up as. And so we've applied a whole bunch of costs. This will be important later on when we're updating and we're comparing what did we plan and what is things actual. Now you will notice here, because this is getting into the updating process now, it says baseline 0, right? So it says baseline 0. We have not set the baseline. It also says variance, like, because we haven't started anything. So we've got some quite large variances here. This will all zero out once we set the baseline. And what will happen is total cost here will copy and paste into here automatically. So that then when things change on this, you will see the variance over here, which is really helpful when you're running a project, if it's cost loaded. Now, if it's not a cost loaded schedule, you will see the variance in time. And this is very important with schedules too. You get the most information and best understanding when a schedule is cost loaded. You can really understand what's going on. Here you can see baseline start, baseline finish, start variance, finish variance. And you see this says NA. Means we haven't set the baseline. What we want to do is set the baseline. Microsoft Project used to call it save the baseline. Set the baseline, save the baseline. It means the same thing, except people get it confused when you say save baseline. They just think it's saving the file. It's not. You're telling the program to remember certain information. Not all the information, but certain key information. And that it will do once you set the baseline. So we have not set it here. So we can't really update a schedule and compare how we plan to what's actually going on unless we set the baseline. So this is very important. If you miss this and then you start updating, you're going to wonder, why don't I have any variances? Why doesn't it tell me what the difference is? Well, you never told the program, we're ready, set the baseline. So you set it once you're happy and you feel that you have all of the information in the project that you need. That the project is, if I click on the square icon box and I right click, go to cost, is this what my budget is supposed to be for this project? Is this what I allocated here? Is this meeting my duration requirements for this project? Like, what was my contractual requirements? Was there any particular phase dates that I was supposed to meet? Am I meeting those, right? Contractually. Sliding to the left, going to the resource sheet. All of these resources, they have costs. If I click on this square icon box and I right click cost, I might see, oh, project coordinator. Looks like I have not assigned the project coordinator. Everyone else I have. Do these costs represent what we budgeted? Do these costs here with my subcontracts represent the contracts that I have procured with those particular contracts, with those particular contractors? If they don't, I've got to look at what was the contract amount and make sure that I adjust the costs on the schedule so that it complies with that. So there's a bunch of checks and balances that you should be doing before you set the baseline. All right, so I just slid to the left, right click. Those have been watching up to this point, you know that's the way I like to switch between screens. Here on the left here, you've got these different sheets, and the square icon box up here, right clicking, you've got these different sheets again. Not those ones, but they're different tables. Okay, so we've looked at that. I said I didn't have the project coordinator, so maybe what I want to do is, in this case, if I pull this to the right, I see the resource, I got the site super, and I haven't assigned the project coordinator. Let's do that. I'm just going to go to the resource tab, assign resources, and I am going to look for that project coordinator. Click there, assign, and I've got the project coordinator listed there now too, right? So that's a lot of money that I had not assigned, which I should have assigned, right? And that, of course, is adding to my overall project cost, making it higher, which is fine. That's my budget. If that works out to my budget amount, I'm good. Okay, so I've done those checks and balances in place. We've checked that we have no open ends. Everything is connected on this project. We've talked about that in previous videos. The critical path makes sense. I usually tell my students and professionals that I usually look at the schedule from beginning to end, and then I actually do it in reverse from the end to the beginning. In lean construction methodology, we do something called pull planning, and usually from a milestone date, and it's kind of looking at things stepping backwards. It's a different way of looking at your projects, and it's really thinking about the aspect of pulling the work towards the next trade and what are the conditions of satisfaction. So what does the painter need from basically the carpentry sub that's coming before them? Those types of things are discussed and collaborated with. But if you're just doing normal methodology, I think it's still, your brain thinks differently when you work backwards. And it took me a while to get used to that because I'm more traditional, that I always went from beginning to end. But when I started going from end to beginning, I picked up on a lot of issues that were occurring in a lot of issues that I would miss over and over again, just looking at it the same way. But when you look at it in reverse, you catch those issues. So that's a really good sort of project management tip that I wanted to clue you in on. So if we're ready to update the schedule, then what we're going to do is set the baseline. So I usually go to square icon box, variance, because I like to see this NA here. And no, I haven't set the baseline. I'm going to go up to the project tab and I'm going to go set baseline. Okay, so project tab, set baseline. Now you notice this box, it says set baseline for the entire project. You know, it says set baseline for selected tasks. I'll talk about selected tasks in another section when we talk about adding change orders and things like that and how that can be utilized. But for now, the default is pretty much what we want, entire project. So I'm going to click OK. And you'll see that it has selected and it has put the baseline for everything, the entire project. So what it did, it copied these and it pasted them over there, and it copied these and it pasted them over there, more or less. That is what it's done. And it's remembered a whole bunch of columns. If you really want to know which columns it's remembered, the easy way to look at this is to right click, go insert column, and then take a look. So you see how there's like a whole bunch of baselines listed. There's like budget cost, budget work cost, deliverable finish, deliverable start, baseline duration, estimated finish. There's all of these line items here that are being remembered. And then baseline 1 is another story. We'll get into that another time. But all of those columns are what's remembered. And the ones that are really vital for us will be cost, so that we can check the variances in cost. And then, of course, baseline start and baseline finish are really important because then we'll be able to see the variances in time. So cost, finish, and start, those are really important. Baseline work will be very, very useful when we're monitoring work hours, as you'll see later on as well. So that's what it's going to remember. And you saw how it's remembering baseline start and baseline finish here. And then you see two columns if you pull this to the right here, start variance and finish variance, right? I'm in the variance screen. That's where it's really helpful to know that, right? And if I go to cost now, I can see baseline. That's all plugged in. You see how this is all zeroed out, right? So there is a variance. This is the baseline. And so all it did was copy that and paste it there for now. When these change, then it will basically do some addition or subtraction, depending what changed, and show you the variance plus or minus over here. Okay, so now we can get kind of started now that we've got this set as a baseline. So I'm going to right click over here and I'm going to go into what we call the tracking screen. And the tracking screen is where we can enter actuals. So when we update a project, we need to enter actual starts and actual finishes. And so it's different than start and finish, right? Actually means boots are on the ground, you actually done something. You know, if it was an IT project, it just means something is 50% complete or 100% complete, but stuff has started to happen. And you want to be able to track that. And this is where you can enter it. The other area that's helpful is under the task tab. You'll see there's a bunch of things, particularly in here, where you can say how much complete something is, and we'll show you how this is useful as well, mark on track. All right, so I'm going to put in what we call a status date. Now, a status date is the date we're going to update the project to. So to put in a status date, we basically will tell the program under the project tab that we want to create a status date. Now I started this series using plan 3. I've kind of switched back to project 2019, but it's really all the same. Like there's not changes in any of this, so you can follow along straightforward. Where there's changes is there's stuff in Plan 3 that I'll go back to at some point, where you can do some things with Scrum and other areas, right? And that's becoming a thing in construction too. So we'll talk about that eventually. But for now, I go to the project screen. The reason I'm mentioning that, I find sometimes it's a little bit buggy, Microsoft Project. Like I can pick a date and sometimes it picks it, but it goes back a year for whatever, at least my version does. So I usually don't pick it here, but probably on Plan 3 they've corrected it. It's not an issue. At least I haven't had that issue with Plan 3. But I usually go here. And that's the nice thing I do find with different programs that I use. Sometimes all programs, they're a little buggy with something. If you know a different way around it, you can usually do workarounds to get it to work for your needs. So I just go in here and I'm going to put a status date. So I got to figure out where are we on this schedule, right? I got to figure out where are we on this schedule. So the status date should be on stuff that has happened. It's not in the future. It should be on what has happened. And so if I actually go here and I'm saying that this thing is in 2024, right? So I'm going to say February, and I'm going to say that we are going to update to, let's see, so that'll be somewhere around here. Maybe that's not enough stuff. So let's say we're going to update it into March, right? So I'm going to, just so that we have enough stuff here that we can sort of update a few activities. So maybe I'm going to say March 8th looks good. All right, so that's our status date. I'm going to click OK. Nothing happens, except you do notice that this said March 8, 2024 here, right? Or whatever you want to pick. You got to pick whatever your project time is and that what has done. So I don't see anything here. I don't see any changes or anything. I would like to see that status date over here. So I'm going to right click over this general area and pick grid lines, right? You could do that, or you could go up to format and you could pick grid lines here. It's the same box either way. All right. I usually just, for quick, easy access, just hover in the Gantt chart area, pick grid lines. There I go. And now I'm going to slide this down. So this is how you can customize different looks on the screen and different line types that you want to see. Here, I'm going to pick status date. You have to pull this down, select status date, select the solid line, select the color. I'm going to select red, and I'm going to click OK. And now it appears. So you see how it has appeared? I'm going to update my project to this date. So I'm just getting into construction by the look of it. And you know what? Maybe I want to see this zoomed in a little bit. So I'm going to go plus, and now I can see it by the week. And I'd like to see it a little bit tighter. You see how it shows the weeks pretty spread out? And I've explained this in previous videos. It's all about what you can see when you're doing this stuff so that you understand what's going on. I'm going to double click here. So double click, this is what we call the time scale. And I am going to shrink it down. It's at 111%. I usually find around 55% is good. I can still see the days, but I can see more weeks. And that's what I want to be able to do. I want to see what's really transpiring here. I'm going to grab this and I'm going to pull this to the right so that I can just, get down into about here. I can see a little bit more. This is the area that I'm going to be updating to. So if I'm in the Format tab, I'm just going to draw a nice little arrow here to help explain things. And I'll go through this in another video in a lot more detail just to understand the concepts. It takes a while to understand the concepts, but we're at this date, which is our March 8th, 2024 date. That means this should be the end of Friday that day, or maybe it's Monday or Tuesday, but it shouldn't be. It should be in this zone after that time is finished. We shouldn't be back here trying to update for this coming Friday. You don't know what's going to happen between here and there. So you have to make sure that the time has passed so that you can update. Now the program lets you update it, but if you're managing a project effectively, you should be looking back. So really, this is historical. This stuff has happened, right? You just want it to reflect what has happened. And so as an example, maybe the application for permit, which was January 16th, maybe the start, right? So we had that we were going to start on January 16th. Well, we're going to say that we didn't. We're going to say that we didn't start till January 17th, right? And I got to make it the right year because I've gone ahead a little bit. So I'm just going to make it the right year. So I'm just going to go January 17th. Okay, so it just moved it. But you see how it warns you if you're in the wrong year or something? Construction projects often run 3-4 years, depending what you're doing. If you're doing an LRT or a subway, it could run 10 years. So it's sometimes too, when I put that start, I've got to say, okay, it's done. I could say it's 100% done. That's a milestone, so it has 0. So I always look, if something's done, I should make sure it's at 0. And now I'm going to put apply for permit. Well, you know what? When I moved that, it moved this, so I'm okay with that. I'm going to say this went the way I thought up as far as starting, but maybe it took longer. And for me, I like to insert the duration column. I usually will insert column, type D for duration when I'm updating, all right? So I usually insert that duration column here, and maybe I'm going to say this thing took 2 extra days to get the permit, right? So I put that took 2 extra days there, and so that's fine. And I'm going to say, I could now say this is 100% complete. Like I could just type in here 100%, and you should see a dark bar go through it. It's no longer critical, right? It's done. These are critical activities in red, which means they're on the longest path in the network to complete the project. So they're active, so they're going to stay red. But once something's done, there's no flexibility, no movement in it. It's done. So that's important. Now, the other thing I'll point out too is you've got to be careful. Like if you say something here, like this activity over here is 100% done, like the setup of trailer, and then you update this, it won't move anything ahead of this. So maybe I'll just show you that in advance here. If I say that that task is 100% done, here's another shortcut to say 100%, right? It said that that's done, and it's saying this no longer is critical because when I change this, it's not going to change the stuff in front of it, right? So if I change this to be 12 days, right? See what it does? It just kind of pushes this forward, but this is going to stop anything ahead of it from moving. So you got to be careful about the order that you say of things are complete if something like that is going to change things and you actually wanted it to move things. I'm going to click undo. All right, pull that back. I'm going to click that to 0. Okay, so now we've got that back. And I'm going to kind of look at this particular activity, and I'm going to say it looks like it's okay where it is, right? And then I'm going to look at this activity, and I'm going to say that's fine. It looks like it actually started and finished where we wanted to. Now I could put in the actual finish and actual start dates, and if it matches these, right, dates on this particular activity, like what do we got? March 4th and March 5th here. If it matches those, that's fine. Then I could just say it's 100% done if I want to. But I want to show you another way that's pretty cool that you can update things too. But first, I want to say this temporary washrooms. And you know what? That's important on a site. Like where are people going to go to the washroom? It is delayed for whatever the reason, and it's not going to start till Monday. So we'll just put that over there, right? So it didn't happen before this line. So I could either put a lag here, right? I could double click on that to say, this is going to happen in 3 days, right? And then I'll move it over there. Or I'm going to click undo, pull it back. I could go move incomplete parts to status dates, right? The difference is you notice this turned blue. So it's kind of saying, yeah, but now you put a constraint. And we've talked about constraints before. So if I go click here to entry view, right? It's got this little box here because I told it to move it. It moved it to that date. So that now has a start no earlier. So that won't start any earlier because we've moved. Now, in this case, it doesn't really matter which way I do it because I'm going to be updating everything to here. So it doesn't really matter in that case. Other cases, you might want to avoid the constraint because they can be problematic because it makes my critical path disappear. It locks things in, things won't move. So I have to be very judicious about where I use a constraint or not. I showed you just a minute ago, I just put a lag on it. That's another way around that. So you could do that as a choice. Okay, so now we've got all of this stuff here, right? I am going to say that it's complete up to this date. Now I could, like I said, go back to my tracking Gantt, and I'm getting you used to go back and forth between different screens, and I could just punch in 100%, on these activities, right? A quicker, easier way, if these are now where you want them, a quicker, easier way to do that would be to select everything and go up here and just click mark on track. And it fills it in for you. It calculates if something started but not finished, all of that sort of stuff. And so it takes into account anything that's to the left of the status date and marks it on track. Anything that's to the right, it leaves it alone. So it doesn't matter if you had something way down here, it would mark it as done. Very quick, efficient way of updating your schedule when you've updated things to where you want to be, kind of like what I just did. Okay, so that's great. We've updated the project. Now the question is, how are we doing? What's going on? All right, so we can click the square icon box. We can go to cost, and we can see, if I pull this bar now, it can be useful. You can see a whole bunch of information here. We can see that the baseline was $408,240. Total cost now is $41,440. We have a variance of $3,200, right? We've incurred $8,960 of the work, which is mostly on the management side up to the start of construction, right? We haven't gotten into a whole bunch of payments with trades and different things yet. And given that, this plus this remaining amount equals this up here. And so you can see where the math is coming from. It's good to know where the math is coming. This minus this equals that. This plus this should equal this. All right, so it's pretty straightforward that way. Now, what I don't know is where exactly these differences are coming in. So I can slide to the left, right click, go to the resource sheet. And remember in the resource sheet earlier, we went to the cost table. I clicked the square icon. The resource sheet usually looks like this, but I clicked the square icon and we went to cost. So this is where I can see the variances, the PM and the site super. So what are we paying the PM? I think we had like $100 an hour for both of them, right? So we had PM, $100, and we had the site super, $100. Okay, so $800 and $2,400. So let's take a look now at some of the variances. So let's take a look at the Gantt chart over here again. Okay, so we're back to the Gantt chart. I'm going to actually, before the Gantt chart, and we can see here on the Gantt chart what's darkened in to the left, that's done. This is basically what is to come in the future. And so I'm going to slide to the left. I still don't know like how much longer this project's taking. So let's take a look at what we call the tracking Gantt, right? So I just went to the tracking Gantt, slid to the left, right click, tracking Gantt. And I'm going to click scroll to task here. Brings it up. Oh, look at this. It looks different, doesn't it? So if I pull that there and we take a look, okay, what's going on? Oh, there's a bottom bar and a top bar for each activity. Even the milestone, there's one that's just empty and one that's darkened in. So the dark bar on the bottom is the baseline. The top bar is what's changed. All right, so you can see we started 1 day late and we finished looking at this 1, 2, 3 days late here. So I can actually count this if I've got this set up in days, right? I could, and by the way, I'll just change my size here. If your text size is never, if it's not big enough for you or it's too big, you can always go to format, especially when you download my files. You might find the text might be too big, that you don't like it. You can just go to format, text styles, and you can change it. I'm going to make it bigger just so you can see stuff a little bit better, because I don't know what your screen size is. So I'll just pull this a little bit here and get this pulled to the right. I'm going to now, in this screen, go to, right click, go to the variance screen. Remember we said the variance, where we have that baseline start, baseline finish. Well, this is where I can see the differences in time. So, as I said, we started 1 day late, but it finished 3 days late. And I can count them, 1, 2, 3. So I can follow this down. This basically started 3 days late and finished 3 days late. And you can follow each activity along, and you can really look at it and picture what's going on. And then you see over here, this one actually, so this finished 3 days, this basically started 3 days late and finished 3 days late overall, right? From here to there on this one, right? So you can see that there. But then it jumped to all of a sudden 6 days. So this started 6 days late and finished 6 days late. So what you want to do with this is document this. Like, why did this start 1 day late and why did it take 2 days longer? I'll talk about this in another video, but why did it start 1 day late and finish three days late, right? So there's two things going on. Something like, why weren't we set up on time, and why did it take longer duration to do it? They're different questions with different answers. So you'd look at that, and that'd be okay. That'd be the one you'd really want to figure out, like this apply for a permit one, right? And then the next one you'd want to figure out, because it kind of just follows through, is why did this go from 3 days to 6 days here? Like, what happened here? You know, the temporary washroom supplier supply chain issue, we couldn't get it. That would be the reason. All right, and union requirements, we have to have these temporary washrooms, or health and safety requirements, both would dictate that. So we delayed the start until here. Make a note. Why? So you double click on the activity, you put a note in here. When you're updating, you know, you should be putting notes, because you won't remember later on. This is kind of what we call contemporaneous project management. You're updating things as it goes, and you're making notes so that you can follow along and you can go back to it and figure out more stuff, what happened and what's going on. So we know that this project is overall 6 days late, right? So we know that overall this project is 6 days late. And that is contributing to our extra cost. Now, if I slide to the left and I right click over here, we can go to where it says resource usage. And we've got work, right? So we've got work listed. There should be a column that would be work variance. And so we can kind of see here these oddball numbers that are coming in and where they're attached to and how this is playing out. So essentially we've got a work variance overall for the PM of 8 hours, all right? And these are where if you want to look at where it's being broken out of, where they're coming from: pre-construction, site mobilization, and construction, right? Actually, construction, there was no variance on that, but these two items there was. Site super, we can see that the site super, there was those 3 extra days on site mobilization. That would be the washroom. So the site super has 24 hours difference from what we planned. There, you know, the original plan was basically for site mobilization was 48 hours. Overall, the site super is expected and budgeted to work there 448 hours. This is an oddball number because we put a percentage for the PM managing certain parts. That's why you got some decimal points in here. So they were put as a percentage of those times. So that's good. Now we know the difference. So 8 hours, we said the PM was getting paid $100 an hour. So there's your $800 variance there. 24 hours, that's $2,400. Remember, sliding to the left, going to the resource sheet, right? That's what they were getting paid. And so now we better understand where this cost variance is occurring. There's a per diem cost for running your projects every day. And so if you really want to be looking at this stuff, Microsoft Project, if you put the costs in it, you can get a really good handle on these types of costs and how they're impacting your project. You have to be careful though, if you are cost loading, that you've done a good job of it. Otherwise, it's kind of garbage in, garbage out. You don't want to be looking at variances that aren't reality. So you have to be careful about that. I've seen decisions being made, both in construction, even at the college when I was acting director, with budgeting and things like that. And if you're basing a budget on something that happened and that's not the reality, you could be making some really poor decisions. So you have to be very careful about those types of things. All right, so we know what our variance is. The variance on the project is 6 hours. Basically, our budget is over by $3,200. So the next thing we'll be looking at is, well, how do I get that time back? How do I recover that? And we'll start to talk about that, file naming protocols, multiple updates, change orders, and other impacts in the videos to come. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, did a little bit of review on things, got to the updating process, introduced that. Takes a little time to get your head around it, but we'll be looking at a lot of different other elements of this. But if you really understand this, then it really ties back to why we need such a good baseline schedule developed, no open ends, having basically best practices, so that when we do these updates, it makes life a lot easier and things a lot clearer for us. So again, if you enjoyed these videos, please click subscribe, click the notifications, leave a comment as we build our construction community and this program in Microsoft Project. I'm Tom Stevenson, wishing you a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.